There's a specific kind of silence that only shows up at Christmas. The kind that sits between clinking forks and fake smiles while a child is still small enough to believe the table is a safe place. Tonight, we're stepping into one of those silences the moment a family chose proof over protection, and an 8-year-old felt herself shrink in real time. This story isn't here so we can cheer when someone gets humbled or throw stones at people who failed. If we listen closely, we'll hear something softer underneath the drama, how love can be used like a weapon, and how one calm sentence can become a boundary strong enough to save a child. And maybe we'll ask ourselves, what do we do when the people who should shelter a kid decide to test her instead? Because when my own family demanded a DNA test to prove my daughter was really family right in front of her, with my wife watching my mother smile like it was nothing, I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just said, understood. 3 days later, their lawyer called, and they went pale. Now let me tell you what happened. My name is Hollis Vance, and I'm about to tell you the most humiliating, protective, love-fueled 3 days of my life. But before I do, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes knowing someone is listening is the only thing that keeps a story from swallowing you whole. And if you want more real stories told straight, honest, and deep enough to matter, subscribe and stay with me. I won't sensationalize pain, but I also won't soften the truth. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. Most mornings in Santa Fe start with light slicing through the cottonwood trees and the wind curling over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains like it's got secrets to tell. Mine start with a backpack check, a lunchbox snapshot, and a little voice asking if I remembered library day. Junie's Ada reader already sharp as a tack with the kind of questions that make you pause and think about the world twice. This morning as I walked her to school, she told me all about a group project where she built a model of the solar system but named the planets after her favorite books. Jupiter became Charlotte's Web. Saturn was Coraline. It made her giggle. It made me remember what peace felt like. The school was only 10 minutes from our house, close enough that I didn't mind walking with her when I wasn't buried under deadlines. The sidewalks were still damp from last night's rain. I gripped her tiny hand, not because she needed it, but because I wasn't ready to let go. And maybe, if I'm being honest, because I knew weekends were coming, which meant family. Our house sat in the north end of Santa Fe, quiet, a little tucked away, nothing fancy, but warm. The kind of house where every mug had a story and the living room had toys under the couch even after we cleaned. I stepped in that morning and saw Maeve at her laptop, her brows knit in focus, coffee half drunk on the windowsill. She glanced up, smiled, and asked how drop-off went. I told her about Junie's Book Planet mashup, and she laughed, the sound grounding me in the now. But the now never lasted long in my world. My mother's voice was already on the answering machine, her text already lighting up my phone. Reminders about Sunday dinner, about RSVPs to some cousin's wedding I hadn't thought about in years. There was always something. And I always answered because somewhere deep in me was the lie I was raised on. You owe this family your presence. You owe them your peace. It wasn't just presence. I'd been wiring a set amount of money to their account every month since my first job out of grad school. It started as gratitude. Then it became habit. Then obligation. Maeve never questioned it, not exactly. She only asked once on a night when we were stretched thin and late on rent. Are you helping them, or just paying them off so they leave you alone? I didn't answer. That weekend we drove down to the east side for the family gathering. My mother's house, more museum than home, was polished like an open house that never ended. Corinne, my mother, greeted us with the kind of smile that felt like a scan rather than a welcome. My sister Taryn's daughter Sloane was already spinning in the kitchen in a dress someone had clearly ironed for hours. She's such a star. Corinne beamed, voice raised so all could hear. Our little legacy. Then her eyes flicked to Junie. And this one's so sweet. Always quiet. That was how they did it. Not blatant. Just enough to leave a mark. Junie got a generic book as a gift. Sloane got a Kindle and a speech about how bright her future was. Nobody said anything cruel, but it all landed cruel anyway. Maeve caught it. She always did. But every time she opened her mouth, Corinne would smile and pull her away. Come help me in the kitchen, dear, leaving me alone in a room where I had been trained since childhood to stay agreeable. The only break in that dance came when Rosalind, my great-grandmother, emerged from her den. The family's last flicker of genuine warmth. Her voice cut through the pageantry. Junie, come here. What book are you reading now? Junie lit up. They talked about witches and wonders and endings that weren't always happy but still honest. Rosalind remembered her name, looked her in the eye. When Maeve saw that, her shoulders dropped like she could breathe again. So did mine. That night, Junie crawled into my lap after brushing her teeth. Her voice was small. Why do they always talk more to Sloane? I froze. I couldn't lie. But I didn't want her to think badly of anyone, especially not family. I thought for a beat and said, sometimes grown-ups confuse favoritism with love. It's not your fault. It's not about you. She nodded. But I saw it settle into her anyway, a small dent in her shine. Later that night, long after Maeve had gone to bed, I was still staring at the ceiling when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no greeting, just one sentence. If you think it's just favoritism, you haven't seen what they've planned for her. I didn't panic, not at first. The text was too vague to act on, too specific to ignore. Instead, something sharper kicked in, an instinct I hadn't used since Maeve gave birth, and I held that slippery, furious little bundle in my arms and realized I'd die for her without question. I went into protection mode. Not paranoia. Precision. The next morning, I noticed how Corinne, my mother, talked about Junie when she didn't know I was nearby. Conbay, she said on a call, not Junie, like she had no name, like she was a placeholder. I didn't say anything, but the words itched under my skin all day. Then Maeve flagged something. Your mom called. Asked what days Junie gets out early, then asked about the list of people allowed to pick her up from school. Maeve raised an eyebrow. She's never asked that before. She said why I asked. Nope. Just said she was wondering. I didn't answer, but inside I was adding it all up. That afternoon I took a detour, visited Rosalind. Her little adobe home smelled like lavender and old books. She was tired, but her mind was a laser. Has Corinne been bothering you two more lately? She asked the second I walked in. I deflected, but she didn't let it slide. I've lived long enough to know a smile hiding poison. Don't insult me by pretending. She asked me to drive her to her doctor's appointment the next day. I said yes, grateful for the task. During the wait, she sat beside me in the lobby, filing something in her purse. Then, without looking up, she said, I'm updating the trust. Want to make sure things end up in the right hands. Junie's got a good heart. Don't let anyone tell her she doesn't belong. I opened my mouth, then closed it. But her phone lit up just then, screen exposed. She didn't notice. I caught a glimpse of an email subject line. Meeting retrust update, family concerns. The sender, a law firm. Not a notary, not an accountant, a law firm. Something dropped in my stomach. That night, Corinne invited us for dinner again. Said it was to test out the menu for the holiday gathering. The food was fine, the mood was not. Wade, my father, kept bringing up house prices and keeping assets in the family. Taryn has always played the chorus line. It's only fair things stay in the bloodline. Halfway through the night, I walked past the study and froze. The door was slightly ajar. Corinne's voice low, urgent. I just don't want any assets falling into the hands of a child we're not even sure. A pause. You understand, right? Then another voice. Male, clipped, legal. I do, and I'll prepare the paternity documents as discussed. I didn't move. My ears rang. My hands went cold. Paternity. They weren't just playing favorites. They were preparing to erase her. I walked back to the living room, face calm, pulse screaming. I made small talk. I thanked Taryn for the wine. I smiled at Wade's story about the furnace. And then I took Maeve and Junie home like nothing had happened. That night while they slept, I pulled out my laptop, dug through the old enrollment files for Junie's school, found the scanned copy of her authorized pickup list. There it was. My mistake. Their opening. Corinne and Wade's names were still listed. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Corinne. Dinner this weekend at our house, she wrote. Family only. We have some things to clarify. The night before the dinner, the air in our house felt dense, like something unsaid had taken form and settled between the walls. Maeve was putting Junie's lunchbox in the dishwasher when I finally said it aloud. They used the word paternity. I heard it. And they said they didn't want assets falling into the hands of a child they weren't sure about. Maeve stopped mid-motion. The silence that followed wasn't shock, it was something colder. A realization. They're not just being cruel, she said quietly. They're building a case. We sat down at the kitchen table, a silence stretching between us until I broke it. I'm calling the school in the morning. I'm getting Corinne and Wade off the authorized pickup list. No more access points. Maeve nodded. And Rosalind, I'll call her tonight. If anyone knows what Corinne's capable of, it's her. Rosalind answered on the second ring, her voice raspier than usual but sharp as ever. She's pushing you, she asked, skipping pleasantries. Worse, she's circling Junie now, trying to frame her like she's an outsider. She came by here last week, Rosalind said. Told me not to overcomplicate the will. Told me you'd understand if nothing was left to a child that may not be of this line. I didn't respond. There was no response. I told her, Rosalind added, I don't need a lab result to know who belongs to me. The next morning, I arrived at Junie's school with the forms already printed. The front office staff smiled when they saw me until I slid the update across the desk. I asked them to remove Corinne and Wade from the list of approved guardians. It'll take 24 to 48 hours for the change to reflect across the system, the administrator explained. During that time, if someone on the old list shows up and we verify their ID, we're still obligated to release the child. My hands went cold around the pen. What if I said there's a custody concern? She hesitated. We'd need documentation from the district or legal notice to override protocol. I nodded, signed, and thanked her. I left with a hollow in my gut. Junie came home early with me that day. She was humming a song from music class in the back seat, talking about a friend's hamster and a joke her teacher made. She had no idea. That innocence, so unprotected and bright, burned behind my ribs. Maeve and I talked again that afternoon. She paced the kitchen, arms crossed, fury etched into her shoulders. You think if we did the DNA test ourselves we could shut this down? She asked. Maybe. But I don't want Junie to think she's on trial. She's not the one who has to prove anything. Maeve nodded slowly, then said the thing that stuck with me since they're going to keep digging until they find something or invent it. If it's not the DNA, it'll be something else. They just need a reason. That evening, Corinne called. Her voice was laced with sugar. Dinner tomorrow will be lovely, she said. Everyone's coming. It's important that we all talk openly. Oh, and if you happen to have Junie's birth certificate, bring it along, just so everything's clear. Wade texted right after. Looking forward to seeing you all. Bring Junie's paperwork if you can, no rush, just helpful. It wasn't dinner. It was a setup. Maeve and I made a plan. If anything happened, if they so much as hinted at accusation in front of Junie, we would leave. No debate. I sent Rosalind a final message. Dinner's tomorrow. If anything happens, I want you to know I didn't imagine it. She replied simply, I'll handle my end. The next evening, we arrived at Corinne's home in Eastside. It was pristine as ever, table set like a magazine spread. But the smell in the air wasn't rosemary or cinnamon, it was tension, as real as smoke. As always, Corinne greeted us with a kiss and promptly pulled Maeve into the kitchen to help with the glaze. Leaving me alone in the dining room with Wade Taryn and their daughter Sloane. Junie took her seat beside me. She was quiet, watching the grown-ups, closely sensing something just under the surface. She sat up straighter than usual. She was trying to be good, trying to earn warmth. And that's what killed me. I watched Wade sharpen the carving knife unnecessarily long, as if preparing for something formal. Corinne re-entered, smiled at Junie, then turned to me. Hollis, she said with exaggerated gentleness. Before we eat, there's something we'd like to clarify, just to make sure everything is right. That she glanced at Junie, truly belongs to us. I felt Maeve's absence like a hole beside me. And just like that, the trap was sprung. Junie's little shoulders tensed the moment those words hit the air. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She just folded in on herself as if trying to disappear into the chair. Wade set the knife down and folded his hands like a judge ready to issue a verdict. We think before things go further with school's family arrangements, the trust there should be clarity. Just something simple. A DNA test. He said it like he was asking me to pass the salt. Corinne added, "We don't want there to be any more misunderstandings. You know how rumors start. This is for peace of mind." Junie's hands were on her lap, fingers curled so tightly I saw her knuckles whiten. She stared at the tablecloth like it might provide answers, like it might whisper to her that she was still safe. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't protest. I looked at Junie, then at the people who claimed to love her, and I said only one word, so quiet it cut through everything louder. Understood. Maeve returned from the kitchen just as the silence settled into something icy. Her eyes flicked to Junie's stiff form, then to my face, then to Corinne's smug satisfaction. She knew. Taryn jumped in with the performance. "Let's not dramatize this," she said lightly. "I mean, everyone's wondered something at some point. Even I've had those thoughts." She looked at me like she wanted me to agree to validate their script. I didn't. Wade tried to reassert control. "This is family business, Hollis. We should handle it here, not make it legal." And Corinne, with a voice like velvet pulled too tight, said, "I only said what I said because I care. That child deserves to know for sure." Then came the final straw. "Do you have her birth certificate on you?" she asked. "Just so we can verify, make everything easier, like Junie was a faulty invoice." I stood up. "Junie, grab your coat." She looked up at me, confused, still frozen. Maeve crossed to her, gently took her hand, helped her from the chair. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't explain. Corinne stepped in front of the hallway. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding." I stared straight through her. She stepped aside. We walked past the living room where the fireplace crackled like a soundtrack to their theater. And just as we passed the study, I caught Corinne's voice low and sharp to Wade. "If he won't comply, we do it the other way." That school list is still active. My spine stiffened, but I kept walking. Let them think I hadn't heard. In the car, Junie sat between Maeve and me, her seatbelt clicking too loud in the quiet. After a few minutes, she whispered the words that undid me completely. "Did I do something wrong?" I turned toward her, but before I could answer, my phone buzzed against my thigh. And again. And again. I checked it. One message. From Corinne. "If you won't do it voluntarily, we'll have our lawyer send an official request." Junie didn't cry when we got home. She didn't ask questions, didn't complain, didn't even seem angry. She walked in, kicked off her shoes like it was any other night, then climbed onto the couch and curled into a ball beneath her favorite quilt, the one with the faded ducks on the corner squares. Her stuffed foxlark was already waiting for her there. She held it tight against her chest like she was trying to hug herself from the inside out. Maeve sat beside her. She didn't push. She just whispered soft things like, "You don't have to prove anything, and you're already enough exactly as you are." I stood in the hallway for a long minute before stepping into the room. I could hear Junie's breathing, steady quiet, like someone pretending to sleep just to escape the day. I hated what had happened. I hated that I hadn't stood up sooner. But mostly I hated that she'd heard that word belong, as if she were an item in a lost and found box. When I finally sat beside her, I reached over and ran my hand gently through her hair. "Junebug," I said, my voice low. "You didn't do anything wrong." Her eyes stayed fixed on a patch of the blanket. I kept going. Sometimes grown-ups say cruel things when they want something. Sometimes they pretend they're asking questions, but really they're making you feel small so they can feel big. Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. "So, they don't think I'm part of you," I swallowed. "They're wrong. You are a part of me. You're my daughter. Nothing will ever change that, not a test, not a paper, not even them yelling it 100 times. Junie didn't say anything else, but she didn't move away from me either. That was enough for now. Eventually, she drifted off to sleep, Lark still clutched tight. Maeve and I stood in the kitchen afterward, both of us too exhausted to pretend we weren't angry. She leaned against the counter, arms folded across her chest, eyes blazing. "She's not the problem," Maeve said. "They are." I nodded. "Corinne's not going to stop. She's not mad because Junie isn't theirs," Maeve said. "She's mad because Junie is between her and whatever legacy she thinks belongs to her." I opened my phone, navigated to my banking app, and pulled up the monthly auto transfer. It was something I'd set up years ago out of guilt, a soft, quiet bribe to keep the peace. $500 on the first of every month, no questions asked. Just enough to remind them I still owed them even if I didn't know why. I canceled it. Right there in the middle of the kitchen with Maeve watching. "You sure?" she asked. "If I'm not, I'll never be." Not 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Corinne." I didn't answer. Then again. Then a third time. Then came the text. "We need to talk. Don't make this worse than it is. Don't be ungrateful." I put the phone down and didn't respond. She'd never needed me to reply anyway, just to obey. It was close to midnight when an unknown number called. I picked up on the third ring. "Hollis," the voice said clearly. "This is Decker Linwood. I represent Rosalind Holloway." I went still. "I've been asked to request a meeting. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. My office." I was quiet for a moment. Then I asked, "Is there something wrong?" Rosalind heard about the incident at the dinner, he said. "She's displeased." He paused, then added, "And you should also know Corinne reached out to our office prior to the dinner. Regarding paternity. She inquired about how to legally exclude any potential heir she could not confirm." My stomach turned. So that night wasn't the beginning, it was the end of a long setup. Decker continued, "Bring any materials you have related to the incident, and update the school pickup list. Immediately." That last word wasn't casual. It was a warning. After he hung up, I opened my email and searched for the forms from Junie's school. I found them fast. The document I had signed was still processing. Corinne and Wade's names still there. The system's delay window was supposed to be 24 to 48 hours. It had been less than 36. That meant the door was still open, and Corinne had the keys. Maeve came over and leaned against me. I didn't say anything at first, but she must have felt how cold my hands were. "I'm not going to sleep tonight," I finally said. "You don't have to," she answered. "But tomorrow we fight back." Before I went to bed, Maeve's phone buzzed. A message from Taryn in the old family group chat we rarely used anymore. "I'll be speaking with the school tomorrow to make sure Junie's safety is protected. Please don't escalate this unnecessarily." Maeve turned the screen toward me. They were already moving on their next step, and they were going to call it safety. The next morning I woke up before the sun and couldn't remember if I'd actually slept. My body was upright, dressed and moving, but my head felt like it had spent the night underwater. Maeve brewed coffee, black and bitter, no small talk between us. We drove in silence to Decker Linwood's office. Rosalind was already there, sitting perfectly straight in a gray wool coat, her posture elegant without effort. She didn't waste time with niceties. No hug, no greeting. Just a sharp look that made me feel 16 again, but not in the way Corinne made me feel small. Rosalind's look made me want to rise. "I didn't call you here to soothe anyone's ego," she said. "I called because a child was hurt, and that child is mine by blood or not." Decker walked us through what Corinne had done, reaching out to their firm ahead of the dinner, trying to initiate legal measures that would cut Junie out of any potential trust. I listened, as if to someone else's life. Then Rosalind said quietly, "No child should be treated like a legal obstacle." Then she dropped something I hadn't expected. "The East Side house," she said. "It's not fully Corinne's. It never was. It sits inside a trust I control. She doesn't know the full structure, but I do. I built it." I stared. That house was the center of Corinne's control. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every performance of family unity happened there. Take that house away and you didn't just take bricks. You took their throne. "She can keep using it," Rosalind said. Until I decide she no longer can. We left with marching orders update the school documents immediately. Rosalind would handle the legal battle. I was to handle safety. It sounded simple enough until the school called 20 minutes later. "Hi, Mr. Hart," the secretary said. "I just wanted to follow up about a woman who came in this morning to confirm Junie's pickup file." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Did she take her A? Pause. I believe so. The system still listed her as eligible. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the rest. Maeve and I spun the car around so fast the tires screeched. The school was 20 minutes away. The file update I'd submitted last night still pending. We got to the front door of Corinne's house in under 15. She opened it before I even knocked. That should have told me everything. She smiled wide and fake. "Oh, good, you made it." Inside, the living room looked like a department store exploded. Toys, dolls, art kits, glitter purses, all scattered in deliberate chaos. Junie sat in the middle knees, drawn up a brand new giant teddy bear between her and the world. "You're early," Corinne said sweetly. "We were just catching up." Wade leaned against the archway. "Junie's having fun. It's important she knows she has options." I didn't speak. I just walked over and knelt by Junie. She didn't look up. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "This shouldn't have happened." Corinne crouched down on the other side and said in that patronizing coo she used to use on me when I was 7, and in trouble, "Later, sweetie, you can tell great-grandma how much you loved all your gifts. She's worried about you, you know." "We all are." Junie's eyes flicked to mine. That was it. I stood and turned. "Grab your backpack," I said. Wade's tone sharpened. "Now hold on, no," I said. "You took her from school. You crossed a line. There is no holding on." Maeve stepped between Junie and Corinne as Junie grabbed her things. The tension spiked like a gun was about to go off, but no one moved. Then from the hallway came a voice. "Taryn," on speakerphone or maybe a video call. "Let's make sure we document this," she said. "Just in case we need to clarify who's being unstable." Maeve muttered under her breath. "Jesus Christ." Corinne stepped back, hand on heart, suddenly the victim. "You're scaring her." But before anyone could spin the narrative, Junie spoke. Quiet, strong. "I want to go home." That was the final word. Not mine. Hers. We left the gifts. We left the house. And we left no room for misinterpretation. In the car, halfway back to our place, Junie whispered, "Why do they only love me when they want something?" I didn't flinch. I didn't sugarcoat. "Because they don't understand what love means," I said. "But you will. Because you live in a home that shows you." That night back at the kitchen table, I knew what had to happen next. "I'm doing the DNA test," I said. Maeve didn't argue. But only she added if after that we shut every door. No visits, no calls, no crumbs left on the table for them to follow. I nodded. Then I called Decker. He listened as I told him what happened with the school. When I finished, he said, "Understood. You'll get a formal filing within 72 hours. After that, they'll have no ground left to stand on." We hung up. I opened my laptop and scheduled a DNA test appointment for the next day in Albuquerque. Right after I hit, confirm, something slid under the door. An envelope. No sender. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Formal demand for paternity test and family access. It was no longer about family dinners. This was war. When the envelope arrived, I didn't flinch. I forwarded it to Decker, attached every screenshot, timestamp, and school record I had. Then I sat with Maeve and mapped every loophole Corinne could use. We closed them all: school pickups, medical forms, emergency contacts, until there was nothing left for her to touch. Decker called me in that afternoon. His plan was simple: silence, documentation, precision. Corinne's demand wasn't about truth, it was about control. She wanted to provoke, to make me react, to paint me as the wall between Junie and her family. My job now was to stop giving her story oxygen. So I went quiet. No calls, no messages. Corinne's fury spilled into the community instead: emails to church groups, posts about a father keeping his child from love. I didn't defend myself. I just said everything's being handled legally. Silence hurt her more than any argument could. The next day, Maeve and I took Junie to Albuquerque for the DNA test. I made it about strength, not shame. This isn't to prove who you are, I told her. It's to stop people who forgot who they are. She nodded, brave, small hand tight in mine. 72 hours later, the clock ran out. Decker called. Rosalind had executed the trust changes. Corinne's control, the house, the money, the narrative was gone. When Corinne's lawyer called to discuss terms, the conversation didn't go how she expected. He wasn't calling to intimidate me. He was informing them. The East Side house now fell entirely under Rosalind's trust authority. Any continued interference would jeopardize their own legal standing. That night, the texts stopped. For the first time in my life, the silence coming from my family meant peace, not punishment. Decker called before bed. Tomorrow, Rosalind signs the final clause, he said, and your daughter's test results will arrive. You'll have both truths at once. I looked at Maeve, at Junie asleep down the hall, and knew they'd finally lost the right to define what family meant. The DNA results came the next morning. I didn't celebrate. I never doubted her. I just looked at the paper, felt the weight of every word, and thought, this ends here. Maeve and I agreed no posting, no confrontation, just documentation. Decker compiled everything: the test result, the school's confirmation, our written timeline, the record of Corinne's unauthorized pickup. I signed the legal notice ending all direct contact with Junie. Meanwhile, Rosalind finalized the trust. The East Side house and all connected assets were locked under her name. Corinne could stay for 30 days, then she'd be out. Decker sent the notice. I didn't go watch. The fallout came fast. Corinne called 3 times, left 1 voicemail about misunderstandings. Wade tried to negotiate. Taryn sent a half accusation that Maeve had turned me against family. I answered none of it. Every message went through Decker. The moment they couldn't use guilt, their power collapsed. A week later, the moving trucks came to East Side. Corinne and Wade left quietly. I didn't feel victorious, just free. For once, I didn't owe anyone an apology for protecting my child. At home, I focused on Junie. We met with a child counselor not because she was broken, but because she deserved tools to stay whole. That night, I cooked her favorite dinner. Just the 3 of us. No speeches, no promises, just warmth. After we ate, Junie looked at me and said, "We're safe now, right?" "Yes," I said. "Because we don't have to prove we belong to anyone." I watched her smile and thought of the word that started it all. Belonging. It used to sound like a test. Now it sounded like home. I don't need them to acknowledge my daughter as family. Family isn't who demands proof. It's who protects you when the world doubts. This time, when I said understood, it wasn't surrender. It was closure. The door locked, the truth sealed, and we finally stepped forward free. I used to think family was unbreakable, that no matter how hard things got, the blood that ran through us would eventually pull us back to each other. I believed in the kind of forgiveness that forgets too easily, the kind that swallows pain just to keep the peace. I thought keeping quiet made me strong, that letting things go meant I was rising above it. But then they looked at my daughter and asked if she was really one of us. They said it in front of her, my own mother, my own blood, as if Junie wasn't already bruised by everything she'd been through, as if proving her place in this world was something she had to earn, not something she was born with. And in that moment, when I didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't beg, I understood something deeper than I ever had before. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the start of war. And sometimes the loudest thing you'll ever say is simply understood. Because when I said that word, I made a decision. I wasn't going to explain. I wasn't going to defend. I was going to act. And I did. They thought a DNA test would shame me. Instead, it exposed them. Their cruelty, their control, their decades of manipulation, all laid bare with the same precision they tried to use against me. And when the legal papers hit their mailbox, and the house they once used as a throne became a cage of consequences, they didn't have a script for that. They couldn't spin a narrative fast enough to hide from what they'd started. Here's the truth: you don't owe anyone access to your child just because they share your blood. You don't owe second chances to people who weaponize your past. And you don't owe loyalty to people who treat love like a contract. You owe your child safety, stability, truth. You owe yourself peace. I'm not here to pretend this was easy. It wasn't. It tore through years of guilt, rewrote every memory I had of home, and made me question who I'd become just to keep the illusion alive. But in destroying the fantasy, I made space for something real, a new kind of family, one built not on blood but on choice. If you're still in the middle of your storm, if you've been gaslit into silence, told you're selfish for setting boundaries, made to feel guilty for protecting your peace, I want you to know something. You're not alone. I've been there. And if my story did anything for you, if it made you feel seen, heard, or even just less crazy, then I'm grateful you found it. And that's the part people don't see after the papers are signed and the phones finally stop ringing. You don't feel like a winner. You just feel quiet. Not empty quiet, more like the kind of quiet you get when a child is safe in the next room and you realize you can breathe again. If there's anything this taught us, it's that family isn't a title people can demand. It's a choice people prove in the moments that cost them something. And sometimes the most merciful thing we can do is stop arguing with cruelty and start building a life it can't reach. If my story sat with you in any way, you're not alone. And if you want, leave a few lines below, just what it brought up for you or where you're listening from. I read more than you might think, and it matters. And if you'd like to be part of a quieter corner of the internet where we listen, we share, and we don't have to explain every scar, you can subscribe. Not as a favor, but as a way to stay close when the next story finds its way here. Thanks for sitting with me. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people who are trying their best. And I'll see you in the next one.